Hi, Chuck Brewer, Director of Operations for Concrete Technologies. Today, we're actually going to take the CTI product and do a simple wood look. We're going to tape out a pattern just to look like planks, and then we're going to trowel the product over and show you guys how to mimic a wood texture. There's a number of different ways to do this. If you go to our Facebook page, you'll see a lot of guys doing different wood looks. Ryan and I are just going to teach you one of the simple basic techniques on how to get a nice wood looking system. After you've rub brick your skim coat, it's very important to get all the fine dust off. Now that we've got our skim coat broomed off and it's ready to go, we're going to tape out our pattern. We're going to lay out a 5-inch and an 8-inch plank. So we're going to stagger them as we go down. Pull our tape, push our tape down, and then we're ready to do our trowel coat. When you're mixing up the trowel coat for your wood look, you want to make sure that you don't make the product too thin. If it's too thin, it can still bleed underneath the tape. Even though we pushed it down with a Bondo blade or a razor blade, it can still bleed if it's too thin. You want your mix to be much thicker. All right, as you can see from a standard skim coat, this is pretty thick. It's much like a milkshake rather than a loose slurry. We're gonna trowel this out just as if we were doing a stone trowel system. With our trowel, we're going to drag it. And once we've got it spread, you don't really need it thick. The trowel is going to create a thicker look once we spread this out. Bring it down. All right, you can see the tape in the direction that it's going. All we're gonna do now is lay our trowel down and pull with the tape, which is gonna create that texture. I'm not putting any pressure on this trowel, guys. I'm just literally gliding the trowel across the top and pulling it up. When you pull it, you're gonna get a little smudge at times. You can always come back and pull that back out. Don't be afraid to go back in what you just troweled and gave texture to, because you've gotta keep that edge soft. What Ryan's doing is taking a 2-inch paintbrush and creating knots in the wood. He's got a 2 and a 4-inch. What Ryan's done is mixed up the equivalent of a half a cup of color to a gallon of water. We've got a half gallon in the pail. He mixed a 1/4 cup of color. And that's what we're going to use to stain some of these boards. Now that our wood grain texture is dry, we're going to go ahead and rock mop it to lower the profile of the product, which makes it easier to keep clean and much easier on your feet. After you rock mop, you want to broom the job down and make sure it's thoroughly dust free. At this point, Ryan and I are going to go ahead and pull the tape and get ready to color. guys, when we're doing the wood look, we're using a 1/4-inch tape. It's the same tape as the 3/4 and the 1/2 inch, it's just cut thinner. So sometimes the outside strands want to stay down, so you always want to go through and detail your slab to get all these little strands up before you color and seal. We're about ready to start staining the actual wood grain. Ryan's going to start off staining the knots with chocolate. Things you want to make sure you have on hand, obviously a couple of different size paint brushes for getting in smaller areas and wider areas, and a rag in case you get a drop or a drip on something that you don't want it on, you can sop it up. Now that we're at this stage, we're putting in some of the wood grain look with the colors. We're going to let those colors dry once we get them down, and then we're going to acrylostain over the top. Now that we've got all our hand staining done with the paintbrushes, we're actually going to come over the top with some chocolate out of a pump sprayer. You do want to make sure all your hand staining is dry to make sure that you don't mute all the colors. After allowing the acrylostain texture to dry, we're going to put 2 coats of Satin 150 over the top. It's going to accomplish 2 things. It's going to bring the colors out and make them more vibrant, and it's also going to give it a much more natural look. And there it is, guys, the wood look. Use these simple techniques to help build your business.